Hello everybody, welcome back to the United Stand. It's Goldbridge and Ben Foster on the show. Lots to talk about actually, even though we had no matches at the weekend, but Ben would like to talk about his clothing.
I'd like to talk about our clothing because I think today we look an absolute $1 million. We both smashed it, but we had a little, not an argument, a disagreement about who's wearing the nicest top. I think this is a thing of absolute beauty. It's an original, cost me an absolute shed load of money. Get in the comments down below, just let us know what you're thinking.
I think that one's better, really. Just out of interest, just to make it a bit interesting.
It's nice,
you
isn't
could
it?
vote for this one, but I like that one.
Give it to this. It's not really an original. It's a proper knockoff. Cheap as chips. About 30 quid it cost me.
Let's get into the show. We had no matches this weekend, but we had Sociedad on Thursday. We're hoping we're going to get matches next weekend. United will definitely be playing on Thursday in the Europa League. But I don't know whether you saw it over the weekend, quite an interesting debate going on with United fans about Jadon Sancho. We're going to talk a bit about Ronaldo in a minute because there's some talk about him still going in January. But Jadon Sancho, basically the crux of it on social media, and to be fair, I like this sort of conversation. A few people saying, look, he's not fulfilled his talent, a lot of money, not hit this ground running, doesn't look like he's going to hit the ground running. Basically, he's just going to be okay, he's not going to be good. And then generates the conversation of people saying you're talking nonsense. He'll suit Ten Hag, and other people going, "No, I think he's not going to work." What's your thoughts on Jadon Sancho?
I don't think he's a Ten Hag player necessarily. I think Ten Hag wants players who don't want. Jadon Sancho is technically very good. Technically, I just don't think he's tactically clever enough. Or I don't think his work rate is going to be good enough either. I think for Ten Hag, he wants players to work in a system, and everybody has to complement everybody else. And I worry that Jadon Sancho is a lot of money for one, £70 million. Who I think once 74. Once you have that kind of price tag attached to you, it's inevitable that people are going to have opinions right, left and centre, and rightly so as well. It's an awful lot of money. I remember at the time thinking, that's a, do you know what I mean? For that kind of money, you are going to have to hit the ground running. And he didn't do that to start with, did he? No. He showed glimpses this season, for sure, and he scored some important goals. I do worry, though, that for what Erik Ten Hag wants, I just don't think he's a proper Ten Hag kind of player. And if he doesn't smash it this season, it wouldn't surprise me if he finds himself not starting so many games and eventually looking into the transfer market to find somebody that can do that.
I think it's an interesting one because, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt. I think Ten Hag even himself mentioned his athleticism or something like that. So maybe he's not at the levels that he wants. And I also think there's a contradiction in the way that United are playing at the moment because when I watch Ajax under Ten Hag, it's very much 70% possession, camped out on the edge of the box. And I actually think that does suit Sancho when you think about he's not blisteringly fast. He's the sort of player that I think he'd be perfect for Man City, which is funny because he fell out with Pep. But on the edge of the box, little triangles, little 1-2s, I think he works well like that. But United aren't playing like that at the moment. And Rashford doesn't play like that. And Bruno doesn't play like that. So it's just, for me, I think it's a really interesting debate. And, you know, on a weekend that was quite boring, I was reading a lot of replies on this. But I think so much of it depends with Sancho on whether Ten Hag becomes a high possession-based team or whether he's going to keep using this fast counter, which we've seen under Rashford.
I don't think Man United are in a place yet to become this high possession team.
No, I think it could take a while.
They're a good while, honestly. I think they're probably another year or 18 months at least away.
And that's going to be the issue, isn't it? If it's a month away, maybe Sancho's all right. If it's a year or so away,
it's a long time to wait.
You can see him coming out of that team and maybe Rashford off the left, Antony off the right, Martial through the middle. Yeah,
for sure. That's what I mean. I think they're in a massive transition process at the minute. But I've said this thing to you before is what worries me about Man United is they have invested so heavily in individual players, right? And you can go through the Man United, like the whole squad list, right? And you could do loads of them and look at how much they spent on them to start with, the transfer fee. Look at how much their wages are costing them. And it's almost like they have to justify this player. Do you know what I mean? So they're at a point where with players like Jadon Sancho, where they've got to justify it by playing him. And he might not be what everybody wants him to be, but they're like, well, we're just going to have to stick with it for now because otherwise people are going to say he's a waste of money, he's earning crazy wages, so they're going to have to just play him. So that's the problem for me at the minute. I think Erik Ten Hag would love to go into the transfer market and buy a load of players that he watches and goes, his intensity is incredible, athleticism, he's a natural athlete. Do you know what I mean? I think they're the kind of players that he wants, and he hasn't got too many of them around at the minute.
Interesting. Get in the comments below. Maybe Sancho isn't the sort of player that Ten Hag wants. I still think it's a massive season for Sancho, definitely, but I wouldn't be writing him off too much yet.
I like what you said about him being a kind of Man City player, though, and I totally agree. I think if you put someone like Jadon Sancho into that Man City team, he would look at home. He would look at home.
But you know, on that, we're going to talk about Ronaldo. I said this last week, Ronaldo got pelters for the game against Sociedad, and I had to admit that he didn't have his best game. He didn't look sharp.
The goal he scored was a very nice goal, though. Very, very nice goal. Just, again, like I said this a couple of weeks ago, the height that this guy can still jump to is a joke. Like, to jump that height and still have the neck power and the strength and the awareness to direct it back across there. The goalie, if he'd have saved that, he would have like lived off that forever. But, you know, it was what it was. It's a shame it was disallowed.
That's exactly what I was saying, because we were talking about Ronaldo and people were saying, oh, he's finished this, that and the other. I said, but the team United at the moment is playing very on the counter. It's playing very fast. Yeah. And that benefits people like Rashford for the one-on-ones, but that doesn't benefit Ronaldo. But I was saying Ronaldo's never really been a counter-attacking player. Probably not, well, he was when you were at United. He was super fast then. But probably for the last 5-6 years, Real Madrid, Juventus, now United, he's a penalty box striker.
Yeah.
You put Ronaldo, and he'd had a pre-season. I still think he's a bit off. Yeah. You put Ronaldo in that Man City side, look at the goals Haaland's scoring. It's all about positional sense in the penalty box. Yeah. United don't put those balls in. I still think Ronaldo would score 20, 30 Premier League goals in a Man City side just off movement from a team that want... We don't put balls in the box,
basically. For sure. Well, look at Man City. Look at Erling Haaland. He's not getting many touches per game. He's not the kind of player that drops deep and gets it and lays it off and then gets into the box from there. He will wait up there because his movement and his he can just smell it. Yeah. People like Cristiano Ronaldo have made a career off just being able to smell it, that like cleverness, that knowing where to be at the right time in the right place. And players, once they know that he's going to be there, they'll just start putting balls into the box. This is why, like, Haaland at the minute is a dream come true for Man City, because they've got the players around him that trust that he's going to be in there, so they can just drop balls in. I said this at the beginning of the season, he is the dreamiest of dream players, because not only will he score the goals where they cut it back and he's just got an easy tap in, but they'll be hanging it up to the back post, they'll be putting it to the near post. The goals that he scored where he's at the back post or he might make a forward run, they're just sticking balls in there. That's Cristiano Ronaldo for you. You could place him in like Haaland's place now, and he would be, I'm not saying he would have scored 10 goals already, no. But he would have scored you half a dozen at least already.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's interesting because we were talking about this last week and you said Casemiro needs to start. Well, he did start against Sociedad, and I think if the United Palace game had gone ahead this weekend, I've got to be honest, both Ronaldo and Casemiro would have been back on the bench, because whilst I thought Casemiro did okay, and obviously Ronaldo didn't do as well, McTominay and Rashford would hold those places from the Arsenal performance. Just on Ronaldo, you've played with all sorts of players. You'll have seen young players who aren't quite ready, older players starting to drop off. Do you think that Ronaldo now is he starting to fall into that category, do you think, where he's going to have to be a bench player until the World Cup, or do you actually think he's still capable of being a first-team player like he was last year, or do you agree with some people that he might be dropping off a little bit now?
I think
no pre-season as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think this has just been a really tough season for him because, like I say, he didn't have the pre-season that he'd have wanted to have. For sure, people like Cristiano Ronaldo, it's not like he just didn't have a pre-season, he didn't do any work. He would have been at home working his socks off, but there's still a difference. There's still a difference. Match sharpness. It's that match sharpness that he's missing a little bit. But I think even looking at last season, when I remember playing against him last season at Old Trafford, and you see him up close and personal, and he didn't quite have that sort of gravity about him where you thought, oh, you give him a sniff and he's scoring this. Like it just seemed that his powers are just slightly
Has he
waning.
lost that yard?
Just that yard. Just that.
And people don't understand that yard. You can explain. It's not about how quick you are over a yard. It's that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the movement.
It's the preempting something. Yeah. It's the, like they say, you know when it's going to come. And he just didn't seem to have that tiny, tiny spring in his step, which might only be sort of like 5% or something like that. But at that level, for somebody that's been doing it forever, it is still a massive difference. So I think, I'm with you a little bit. I do think his powers are waning a little bit, but it's still
37 though.
He's 37 years old, and even if he is somebody that's going to be coming off the bench the majority of the time, it's still a powerful thing to have. Honestly, if you've got Chris, I guarantee you, every single Premier League team in the league, Man City, Liverpool, if they've got a Cristiano Ronaldo on the bench, that is like gold. Honestly, it is absolutely gold. As long as the guy that's in the starting position is doing it, and knowing you can bring him on with half an hour to go is gold.
Yeah, I agree, and this is exactly what I was on about, wanting him to stay. But I suppose the question, well, look, if Ronaldo's a bench option for United, we're laughing. But the problem is, well, does he want to be a bench option? He probably doesn't, does he?
No, he doesn't. He won't want to do that at all. He will be hating every single second of this, I promise you. He does. He just wants to start every single game. Even games that he started, he'll be getting brought off with sort of half an hour to go, and you can see him sort of like furious almost, because this isn't what happens to Cristiano Ronaldo. Do you know what I mean? He's the main man. You rely on him all game long. You wait and know that he'll just need that split second and he'll score you a goal. But I think it's inevitable. It's what comes. Eventually, every single player will get to a stage where you're not the main man anymore and you can't quite do what you used to do. And it's a shame, but, you know, if the worst case scenario of all of this is that he's just coming off the bench for half an hour, it's not the worst case, is it? That's not a bad thing to have.
You know what, with time you start to understand something more, and I always thought it's weird, Sporting Lisbon, Napoli, these clubs he was being linked to, Marseille, and I thought, nah, he's better than that, because he was our player of the year. But I think, you know what, actually, they were probably good moves for him to go to Sporting Lisbon, play in the Portuguese league, and then every couple of weeks have your Champions League where you can keep adding to your tally. I think he probably knows, and I think we're waking up to the fact that, you know, he is 37, he's 38 in February, and it is to play in the Premier League at that level against people like Rashford and Martial who are in their mid-20s, maybe that is what's starting to happen. Having said that, he's been written off so many times. In 3 weeks' time, he might get his fitness levels up. And
wouldn't surprise.
Yeah, because that header he scored, that was slightly offside.
That's
the thing, and it was that fine margin of just getting back to go forward again.
That. If he scores that goal, everybody's talking about Ronaldo again. Everybody's saying he's the man. Look how high he jumps. Look at his athleticism. He might be 37, but he's still got it. It wouldn't surprise me, though, end of the season, if he went and got a little move back to someone like Sporting Lisbon. I can't see the Napoli. I can't see anything like that, because
Napoli were bloody good. I was surprised.
For sure. Napoli were incredible. Like, absolutely popped Liverpool off. But I think just for somebody like Ronaldo, I think that it's the move back home. Do you know what I mean? Back to Portugal, back with familiar surroundings. He's the man. Champions League football. Everybody's going to get behind him and like adore him. And I think that might be what he needs for probably the last year or two of his career.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. World Cup obviously coming up. He'll be going in for that, and then the January transfer window might do something there.
Well, he'll start every game for Portugal as he normally does, and even if he's not starting, he'll probably be like a player coach on the sidelines. What we saw a few years back, where he's kind of, do you remember the one where he's bear hugging the manager and like getting into?
Well, he basically was the manager.
He was the
final,
manager. Yeah.
Talk about World Cup. We spoke about Sancho. Apparently, he's going to get called up this week, but Rashford as well. I spoke about it over the weekends. I mean, it's always good to see Man United players being called up. Do you know, obviously you take a wider view of football. Might be that Southgate's just picking a bigger squad. It's the last internationals before the World Cup. Do you think Sancho and Rashford befit a place in an England World Cup squad, considering their last year of form? We spoke about Sancho there, and other players that are doing quite well. I mean, it seems to me that Rashford would be going as a striker. Whereas I think he's a left-sided player, but is he worthy of an England World Cup squad?
I think he'll go, for sure. I think as long as he carries on the form that he's been showing for United the last few weeks, which is good to see, to be honest with you, because he's had a tough time,
Well, he hasn't scored since January, at the start of this season, and he's got, 3 goals and 2 assists this season.
And everybody's talking about him again, and I think sometimes you just need that. You need a little spark to get you going again. For sure, I think he'll be in the squad. Sancho, I'm a little bit indifferent about whether you would want Sancho in there, and if he would.
I don't think he'd pick him. I don't like the players who go in the squad and don't get picked. Like the third goalkeeper.
I think exactly. I think there's probably other players that are probably more deserving of being in that squad. I think, like I say, Rashford, he's the kind of player that you can bring off the bench just for that playing in behind, that sort of like that speed.
I agree.
When the game gets stretched a little bit, and that's the kind of time that you're going to need somebody like a Marcus Rashford. But I just think there's too many players in the Premier League at the minute that are just smashing it. You know, that people like Phil Foden, even Raheem Sterling, you saw a few weeks ago at Chelsea, starting to find his form again. But yeah, I think it's a no-brainer that Rashford's going to be in there.
It's interesting because we started off talking about Sancho. Do you think that's a bit of an issue with Sancho when you compare him to Rashford? Rashford, because he's explosive, you can chuck him on, whether it's for United or England, and he can be not in the game.
Yeah.
And then one ball in behind and he's in. Whereas Sancho, to get the best out of Sancho, you're not going to get that in 20 minutes.
Nope.
He's got to be in the team, in form. So it's harder. I mean, again, you've played. That you get impact players and you get players who need to play. And I think that looks like it's the thing with Sancho. To get the best out of him, you've got to get 90 minutes out of him consistently. Whereas with Rashford, because he's got that explosive pace,
he can do it.
He can have a bad game and then bang, something will get you in.
That's why the strikers get paid the big bucks, Mark. It is, honestly, because especially the ones as well who you know can just do it. And honestly, I always say to like these young strikers and stuff like that, like it's the best position to be. If you've got that pace and that electricity and you know you can score a goal at a moment's notice, any team in the world want that, yeah? Any team, even if it's coming off the bench or starting, they want that player who can do that, because you could be losing 1-0 with a couple minutes to go. Right, go on then, big dog, go on there, please, just get us something, snatch us something. And defenders see that coming on as well. The opposition see that coming on, they think, oh, for God's sake.
It's the worst thing in the world. Even when I used to play centre years ago, just don't like pace.
You don't need pace, yeah? You're tired, do you know what I mean? You're a big 6'4", 95-kilo defender. The last thing you want is Marcus Rashford coming on the pitch. But like I say, I'm with you the same. Jadon Sancho, he's not that kind of player. He's the one who needs to be starting from the very first minute, and he needs a bit of love as well. He needs the manager to put an arm around him and go,
lots
go on,
of the
mate.
ball.
Yeah, give him lots of ball, get lots of touches. That's how you get into the game. And they're different players. But Marcus Rashford, I'm with you. Even the same as Ronaldo. If you've got him on the bench and you're bringing him on, it's not the worst thing to have, honestly.
No, not at all. Look, that's pretty much it. We whizzed through it. Really good. The Sancho thing's really interesting. Get your comments in on that. Ronaldo, I think it's going to keep being an ongoing thing. But no, I'm interested to see what happens with this England squad this week and how we get the best out of Sancho. But we got the best out of Ben today. We didn't think we'd have a lot to talk about, but
we got there, mate. There's always something to talk about. And we both wore our like Sunday best today as well. Don't forget to get in the comments below, because this is an absolute belter.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching. Speak to you on the next one.